If the Ukraine war suddenly stopped today, the global map would look very different. But the biggest and immediate losers would not be Russia, nor the United States. They would be Ukraine and France. This analysis is based on data from the World Bank, 2024, The Economist, 2024, ISW Territorial Maps, Institute for Economics and Peace, and statements from European leaders including Emmanuel Macron and Volodymyr Zelensky. Let's see why Ukraine loses first and most. 1. Territorial losses become permanent. If the war stops right now, Russia would keep all territories it currently occupies. According to ISW Maps 2024, this includes most of Donetsk, most of Luhansk. The captured areas of Zaporizhzhia, all occupied Kherson east of the Dnipro and Crimea, fully under Russian control since 2014. This represents roughly 18 to 20% of Ukraine's territory. As Reuters reported in 2024, Western officials privately admit that any forced ceasefire today would freeze Russian gains permanently. For Ukraine, this is the largest territorial loss in Europe since World War II. Demographic collapse. Ukraine has suffered a demographic shock that peace alone cannot reverse. More than 6 million Ukrainians fled abroad, UNHCR 2024. Millions more were internally displaced. Birth rates have fallen to historic lows, the lowest in modern Europe, according to The Economist, 2023. Military-age male casualties remain undisclosed but are described as severe by the Wall Street Journal, 2024. If the war ended today, Ukraine's population would remain permanently reduced, creating what the Institute for the Study of War calls a multi-generational rebuilding challenge. Economic devastation. According to the World Bank's 2023-2024 Ukraine Damage Assessment, Ukraine's economy has lost over 30% of its GDP. It has seen more than 40% of its energy infrastructure damaged or destroyed. It has suffered drastic drops in agriculture and industry, two pillars of the economy. The Kyiv School of Economics estimates reconstruction costs at over $486 billion, a figure echoed by the World Bank. If war freezes today, Ukraine becomes a heavily aid-dependent state, with no territorial gains to compensate for this destruction. Frozen conflict blocks, NATO and EU membership. NATO's official doctrine is clear. A country with unresolved territorial disputes cannot join the alliance. This is confirmed in statements by NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, 2024. A frozen war means NATO membership becomes impossible. EU membership becomes slow, bureaucratic, and politically costly. Ukraine is left in a gray zone, not Russian, not fully Western. According to Foreign Affairs magazine 2024, this outcome places Ukraine in permanent strategic ambiguity, the worst possible scenario for Kyiv. Russia claims victory. If the war ends today, Russia keeps the land it conquered. Full stop. The Carnegie Endowment, 2024, argues that any frozen conflict today would be celebrated in Moscow as a strategic victory, restoring Russia's regional dominance. Ukraine loses territory, leverage, and momentum. Russia regains confidence and influence. But while Ukraine loses the most directly, there is one Western power that stands to lose the most strategically: France. Since 2022, French President Emmanuel Macron positioned France as the European leader of Ukraine's support, the champion of strategic autonomy in Europe, the only Western leader refusing to rule out sending troops, France 2024. But if the war stops now, France appears overextended but ineffective. Peace would be shaped by the US, Russia, or China, not by Paris. Macron's doctrine of European independence crumbles. According to Politico EU, 2024, Macron took the biggest political risk, but would gain the least if the war freezes today. A sudden ceasefire strengthens Germany, Europe's industrial and financial heavyweight. Poland, now the new frontline military power. The United States, the ultimate guarantor of European security. The European Council on Foreign Relations, ECFR 2024, writes that France's influence is shrinking rapidly compared to Poland and the Nordics. France's dream of leading Europe militarily collapses. Military industry setback. France used the Ukraine war to boost its arms exports, its strategic role, its defense investments. But if the war stops, demand for weapons slows. Eastern Europe favors American systems like HIMARS and Patriot. French industry loses billions in potential contracts. A report by The Economist, 2024, notes that the U.S. military-industrial complex has captured Europe, sidelining France. Losing ground in Africa accelerates France has already lost. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, CAR, and large influence across the Sahel. According to Al Jazeera, 2024, Russian influence in Africa grows fastest where France retreats. If Russia emerges strengthened by a frozen Ukraine conflict, AES alliance becomes permanently anti-French. France's role in West and Central Africa declines further. Russia and China fill the vacuum. France becomes symbolically defeated both in Europe and Africa. Domestic political backfire. Macron tied his political legacy to Ukraine. A sudden end, without Western victory, gives ammunition to Marine Le Pen's national rally, leftist parties, anti-establishment movements. According to Le Monde, 2024, this scenario would accelerate France's internal political instability. Macron's doctrine collapses, leaving France weaker domestically and internationally. If the Ukraine war stopped today, the global balance would shift immediately. Ukraine would be the first and biggest loser, losing land, population, economy, and security guarantees. France would be the first Western loser, losing European leadership, strategic autonomy, and international influence. Meanwhile, Russia keeps its gains. The United States strengthens NATO dominance. China increases diplomatic leverage. Poland and the Baltics rise as Europe's frontline leaders. This is the geopolitical reality, based on the world as it stands right now.